I'm going to show you how to get a world-class professional metal bass mix using the new DjinnBass 2. The principles that we use will apply to basically any bass guitar that you deal with, so it's worthwhile learning all the same. Let's do it. This is what it's going to sound like when we're done. See if you can spot the song. So I'm going to reverse engineer this with you. I'm going to learn how to do this, running a DI out of the instrument and then processing everything in the DAW for the best utmost sound that we can get. We begin by loading up DjinnBass 2. You want to make sure that your MIDI performance is to your own liking, because in this case, I'm not using the 4-string articulations to program, let's say, for it to play there rather than there. What I want to do is the shorthand way, just use the position knob to preferentiate the higher frets rather than the higher strings for more of a rounder type, djenty, fall-esque sound. We want to make sure that we're set to the default of DI because we're doing all of the processing externally. And I want to also jog up the humanize around about 2 o'clock on the border of human and bassist. If you want a more benign, rounder, more articulate sound, you can try the finger picking. Has its own thing going on, but we're going to do the pick for the uber gents. So what we're going to do at this point is export this, print it as an audio track, right? It's going to come into the DAW. So these purple tracks here is basically how DjinnBass 2 prints out in audio. So you're going to get one of these. What I want you to do is duplicate it twice. So you'll end up with 3 total tracks. You're going to name one of them DjinnBass 2 Low, DjinnBass 2 Dist, and then DjinnBass 2 Grit. The names will make a lot more sense once we start doing the processing. Let's start on the Grit track here, right? Raw DI. Great. We'll begin by throwing on the ubiquitous, now classic Darkglass Ultra. Let me show you how I'm going to dial this to get the majority of the mid-grit of our sound. I've dropped the tweeter back a little bit because the Dingwall tends to have some pretty abrasive highs and high mids. I've knocked back the high mids and the treble because again, the Dingwall, the NG2 especially, is so heavy on the high mids, so we have to be very careful. We want to funnel the tone more into the lower mid-range, which you'll hear as we start to work through this. And of course, I've dumped back the drive a little bit. I've made it affect the higher frequencies more than the mids. More grunts, more thickness here. But I just want it to hit the highs. This will make more sense once we combine some of the other tracks. What we're going to do after that is throw on a linear phase high-pass filter at 18 dB per octave at about 265 Hertz. It's going to make it sound like this. Super wimpy, right? So we go now to our low track. Do the inverse. We're going to throw a linear phase low-pass filter at about 208 Hertz. It's very important that it's linear phase. You don't want some weird interaction at the crossover frequency. It'll cause all kinds of crazy comb filtering. I won't get into the theory. It'll bore the crap out of you. Just trust me on this one. Combine the two and it sounds like this. Right? So now we've re-injected the lows that we've bypassed in the Grit track. The reason we're doing this is we don't want the low frequencies going through the cab simulation of the Darkglass Ultra. We want the lows unaffected and as flat and even as possible. Now we're going to do some really fun stuff. I haven't done this in a while, but we're going to do a second Grit track, or as we call it here, distortion. We're going to throw on one of my favorite amp sims of all time, the Omega Granifier Ampworks, or switch those words around as you see fit. I don't know what order they're meant to go. We don't want too much lows, we don't want too much highs, we're just keeping the mid-grunt of this, and I like the KT66s as well. You can actually flip out the power amp tubes on this. The EL34s are pretty good too, because they have very rich low mids. You can use those too, but we'll try the KT66s for this. Now, when you combine this with the Grit track and the low, take a listen. Take it out. All right. So we don't want this at full level. We just want to augment it a little bit. So I'm going to take the Granifier all the way down and then just blend it back in. about there. All right, so one thing we want to do is make sure that all three of these tracks are running into their own bass group. So we've got the bass group here. Our first bit of processing that we're actually going to do post the amp sims is the double tap by Submission Audio. So let me dial this in for you. So what was that? About 20 seconds, 15 seconds? That's how long it takes to do all of your bass compression using the double tap plugin. And that's exactly why I created it this way. All the processing is done under the hood, so you don't have to worry about, splitting more tracks or worrying about anything else. So double tap we actually have for a special deal right now. You get $20 off the normal sale price. You can find the link down below. So that's our bass compression done, believe it or not. We're going to move on to maybe the most substantive part of the processing. So when I listen to this, I want to take out the grainy highs first, right? So that's a low pass filter at about 6K. Magic, it's like the digital fire. Obviously, if you reamp this through real pedals and a real amp, it doesn't have as much of that granular stuff in the top end. This is one of those things where analog can really help you. But in our case, we'll just low pass. I'm also going to get rid of some of the rumble down in the subs. Hear how we're starting to funnel it more into the low mids already. So let's tackle the rest of the spectrum. I can hear grain I don't like up in the top end. There we go. So about 4K, drop it by about 5 dB. Now you can see on the spectrum analyzer here, there's a massive peak at 1.6. So we'll drag this back down by about 5 dB as well. And now some of the highest strings are really going to get twangy. Yep. 2.7, right? So there we go. That's the good stuff. The spectrum analyzer is kind of guiding what my ears are hearing as well. So you can kind of hear the build up at about 400 hertz. It's a little bit too much. Oh yeah, it's getting sexy now. All right. We have, what would you call it? It's like a first harmonic kind of mud up in the 160 to 180 range, right? We've spoken about this in our other videos, but this is a common frequency range you want to target with bass guitars. And the very last one to make room for the bass drum, because I'm not going to do any crazy sidechaining stuff. This music is way too fast for me to sidechain duck the low frequencies. Going to take out about 3 dB at 78, 79 hertz. Usually it's about 80 hertz on this particular bass. That's our EQ done, more or less. It's, as you can tell, I'm a subtractive guy. I'm not an additive guy. So the difference... just rounder, nicer fills the low mids. If we listen to that with the guitars, it'll make a lot more sense. Beautiful. Next step is Pro MB. Because the ding wall is so gnarly in the high mids, especially when the higher strings come into it, I want to target between 2K and about 6K. So this is a dynamic cut that we have. Hear how it knocks down that gnarly stuff on the higher strings. It's one of those things with the ding wall. It's a bit of a catch-22. That's where all the aggression is, but it can become really gnarly on the high strings unless you're very, very careful. It's not so much an issue on the finger-picked version because it's a lot lighter. It doesn't emphasize the slappy, high-mid, kind of icy character. But because we're using the pick, we have to be mindful of this stuff. And our very last part of the processing chain is going to be flatline too. This can function as a brick wall limiter, chuck it on limit, take away the auto gain compensation, and then just drag it down until you start knocking back some of the harder frequencies. Just pins it absolutely beautifully. So if you listen to the drop section now, which we've all been waiting for, goddamn that's sexy, and believe it or not, that's it. That's how easy it is to get a professional bass metal mix using DjinnBass 2. If you enjoyed anything that you saw there, obviously DjinnBass 2 itself, Double Tap, and of course Flatline, they're all available in the links down below. Let me know what else you guys want to see, and if you want to get any more tutorials, make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you next time.